Welcome to Spilling the Loyalty, the Digitas podcast where we talk all things loyalty, innovation, and marketing. I'm Brad Blackmon, Executive Client Lead at Digitas.
And I'm Melissa Berger, Chief Solutions Officer at Digitas. Today we are thrilled to have a very, very, very special guest with us, Greg, who's the Chief Marketing Officer of Ferrara. Welcome, Greg.
Good. Welcome. I appreciate the very, very, very. That's great. Thank you.
On this cold, cold day in Chicago.
Couldn't get colder.
Well,
it's great to be here.
It's great to finally have you on the show, and thanks for making time for us today. We greatly appreciate it.
So we are just huge fans of the brand, and I love that you've brought all these amazing candies for us to try. What's your favorite?
No, we have an incredible stable of brands. And again, Ferrara is the leader in sugar confections, and we've been the leader for some time. That spans, when we talk about candies, it's everyday candy and seasonal candy. So those you enjoy in the season, and interestingly, in the seasons, we lead every one of those core forms. You think about Halloween, candy corn,
Yep.
Holiday, candy cane, conversation hearts, and then jelly beans. And Brock's is the leader of each one of those. But my favorite is actually, we were talking earlier, it's Atomic Fireball.
Yeah,
and I just like that cinnamon. I love that hard candy. I love that sucking candy, and being it just takes me back to when I was a little kid.
Yeah, I love that because we were talking earlier. That's my dad's favorite. My mom's is Lemonhead. I'm a Nerds Gummy Cluster. I've moved to that. I love it, and I'm obsessed with them. So
I really liked the Nerds Rope.
Yeah.
But it's so delicious. Every time I go anywhere with my nephews, we have to stop at whatever is the most nearby convenience store, and they pick out different versions of Nerds. So they are all in. My sister appreciates the clusters because then the little nerds aren't stuck in her carpet. Yeah. So this was, I think, for a lot of parents, this was a huge innovation around the delicious nerd candy.
Absolutely.
Well, it has been a really, really busy start to the year. What a crazy, we were at CES. Brad and I did a ton of great stuff there, had a podcast, and now big championship game last night, the inauguration, MLK Day. What a big week. But we are leading up to the Super Bowl right around the corner.
Yeah, so let's dive into our topic today, right? So you've got a huge role as CMO of Ferrara, overseeing some of the most iconic candy brands that are out there. So could you give our listeners who don't know the role of a CMO kind of like a sneak peek into your day-to-day?
I appreciate the importance you've associated with this. Essentially, we make candy, as the little neighbor kids said when they were Halloween. They were like, "Yeah, this guy's really cool. He's like a candy maker. Yeah. He runs a candy shop." And I was like, "Yeah, it's a little bit of a shop." It was very funny.
Popular person on the block. For
well,
sure.
it was like Halloween is again one of our most important holidays, and candidly, anybody who gives away candy over the holidays, over Halloween, it's very important. Like, what candy is there?
Oh, for sure.
And then when we're giving, we give away good full-size candies of all our brands. So I think that I lost a little bit of track. So being a chief marketing officer at Ferrara, I think when you're in marketing, the way I say it, I'm not going to go into the detail of the day-to-day, but essentially marketing is about a duty and a legacy. And the duty of duty of a marketer is to deliver the numbers that you've committed to deliver the commitments to the organization and to the brand. And then the legacy is to leave the business in a better place than it was where you started. So when you think about how do you deliver the day-to-day, how are you driving the cases, that's your duty. And then your legacy, how are you building your equity? How are you building your household penetration? How are you bringing more consumers in? How are you staying relevant, being more relevant with the consumer?
That's awesome.
So that's how we focus. We focus our efforts on those things. And with a stable of brands, over 20 brands, you want to make sure that you're doing that for each one of our businesses.
Well, and when we talked the other day, Greg, we talked a little bit about your career trajectory. You started in the agency world. Correct. So I think it's also one of the things that I know a lot of people are interested in is just path. How'd you get there? So do you mind giving a quick overview of kind of starting out to where you are today being a CMO?
You mean it's a long road.
I was born in.
I was a young boy in Stamford, Connecticut. No, but it's my father was in advertising his whole career.
Oh.
So I saw the work that he did and the businesses that he worked on, and he did a bunch of stuff with a bunch of different businesses, and so I was very enthralled by that level of of branding and elements. So I really grew up in that way. I started in advertising, but soon, worked with a myriad of clients, and my counterparts at the client was like, that really feels like the work I want to do.
Yeah.
And instead of being a provider of creative strategy, actually working on a total proposition.
Yeah.
So and the tangibility of consumer packaged goods was what was most intriguing to me. So there was a guy who was a brand manager at Post Cereals, which is at Kraft Foods, a guy named Michael Pellegrino. Okay. He now leads up Sargento. He's a great human being. Jeez. And he was like, he's the guy I looked up to. He was like, that's who I want to be. And then I had the privilege to get hired by Kraft. I didn't have my MBA at the time, so they hired me in a function. So I worked in consumer promotions, and then I got my, they sponsored me to get my MBA, which was great. So I learned about every bit of Kraft, and then worked on, Post Cereals. So I went from, agency to brand at that point in my career. Spent a bunch of years at Kraft, and then I decided to leave Kraft to join Gillette. Worked on Duracell batteries globally, and then Gillette became P&G, and I spent a little bit more time working globally, and then actually moved to Singapore to manage Duracell batteries across Asia. It was outstanding, and I was there for almost 3 years. I would have stayed for the rest of my life, but I was an expat with 3 kids.
Yep.
So they were like, "We're going to send you back."
Yeah,
and as they were sending me back, Kraft called and said, "Hey, we're moving all the East Coast businesses to Chicago. Would you have any interest to come back?" And that was a really good friend of mine, Howard Friedman, who is still a great friend of mine, and so I decided to return to Kraft 7 years later. Worked on coffee, so premium coffee, then worked on Capri Sun and Kool-Aid. We became Kraft Heinz. I worked on our meals business, so mac and cheese, Velveeta shells and cheese, and then I ultimately was the head of meats. So Oscar Mayer and Lunchables, and then I was back at Kraft Heinz for maybe another 6-7 years.
Okay.
And then I decided to leave in 2019 and join Ferrara. And it really was, there were things about this category that were so exciting. I mean, the category was growing.
Yeah.
And and while I worked on incredible iconic businesses, oftentimes you're working on 1%, 2%.
Yeah.
We were the category is growing 7%.
Right.
These kind of things. And Ferrara had just acquired a lot of the old Nestle brands. So you saw these brands like Nerds, Sweet Tarts, Laffy Taffy, Runts. They were beautiful equities, but they were very, very sleepy brands. Yeah. And the brands were bigger than the businesses themselves. Ferrara is a private company, and it also was an opportunity to build an organization. So that's what got me here. So that was maybe a little bit too long, but again,
I love when you went through that path, because I think some of our listeners, how does a CMO become a CMO? You just literally went through how you were shepherded, mentored, all these things, and all the experience you had around the world. So
when I get asked a lot, I'm sure you do too, Greg, agency or brand side, right? And the reality is I'm happy I've done both. I'm sure you are. You learn different things on each side, and I think it helps you be a better client, and it helps you be a better agency.
I agree.
Yeah, I think starting at the agency, there's definitely was a service-oriented mindset, and then a way to communicate. Yeah. So those two things, in terms of really thinking and listening to your stakeholders, and then really, I think I had the opportunity to, to take what people are saying and then really interpret and drive an action from there.
Yeah.
It's exciting. All right, well, let's get back to Nerds being just such an incredible standout brand. The growth, again, you have seen is incredible over the last 2 years. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about the success of this brand specifically.
No, I mean Nerds is a once in a career. It's a once in a career experience, and I'll talk you through the highlights of that. It's funny because we could be sitting here and I could tell you about the success story of Trolley, or the success story of Sweet Tarts, because we have, as Ferrara, really taken businesses and work the duty, work the legacy. What is that brand positioning? What are you representing to the consumer? How are you breaking through? And we've been able to grow, as Ferrara, 2x the category. We've been able to grow all of our businesses everywhere where we're focused. We're growing, and I think that's an important thing to say, because it is this whole portfolio. And then it's because it is more than just this Nerds story. But man, Nerds is they're almost unbelievable. Because I think I told you when I joined Ferrara in 2019. We had just acquired many of the legacy Nestle businesses. So they were these businesses like Sweet Tarts, like Nerds, like Laffy Taffy, that people people had done great work in driving its equity and driving its brand. So people knew these brands, but they were no longer buying these brands. And, Nerds, it was incredible. You brought it up. It's like it was a dual chamber, launched in 1983. It actually even has a shake equity to it. I should have brought one of those.
I had them in my backpack growing up.
I'm kicking myself, but it was like, you remember that. And you also remember, and people remember how messy it was.
Oh, yeah.
But there was something about it being really tangy and it's like tangy and crunchy, this incredibly unique profile. And you brought up Nerds Ropes. Nerds Ropes is a great business. When we actually first got on the business, we did a couple things to Nerds Ropes to improve it. It was the rope itself was great, but it was actually in a U-board, so it made it bigger than it needed to be. And it was also in a case that didn't really display well, so we put it in a display case that could stand up like a Slim Jim or lay down. So we actually grew the business by 18% just by doing this one package change on that. But one of the things we talked about as a team is like Nerds Ropes was a great product, but it's a lot. And so we were thinking about how could we make that more poppable. And that was really kind of the genesis of Nerds Gummy clusters. And I think what's interesting is like you could say if you were to try a Nerds rope, it has, it has regular sized Nerds on it and a rope. And for a rope, that's a great profile. But when we first started by cutting Nerds ropes and say, let's see if this works. And it was good, but it was not great. So we had being Ferrara, we have all this, all these gummy businesses like Trolley. So we know how to do gummy depositing, technical term. And we actually sand the Trolley worm with sugar. So we said, what if we sanded a little gummy with like little Nerds or baby Nerds? And that actually became, it's like, 5 years later or 6 years later, you talk about how easy this was. But it really was, it captured the lightning of what made Nerds great, this tangy, crunchy, sugar, but it also had a great profile by putting it in this, and I'll open just the product itself just by putting it in a gummy, like a gummy center. So you have this perfectly sized, perfectly poppable. I mean, you open the bag and you could smell it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just
that bag's going to be gone in like
that. It's just that element of I'm not going to chew because I don't need people need to hear me chew. But it really did, and it really is what took this business. Like I said, in 2019, in retail dollars, Nerds was about $70 million.
Okay.
And now in the latest 52 weeks for 2024. It's over 850 million or 870 million. So it's like that's the total Nerds business. But again, in 2019 it was original Nerds and Nerds Ropes. We launched Nerds Gummy clusters at the end of that year, and it really has been the growth trajectory of Nerds Gummy clusters because it hit the perfect element of what consumers are looking for in sugar confections. Like one is, sugar was very much a simple category. We talked about like Atomic Fireball. It's a very simple hard candy, but this is multi-sensorial, it's multi-dimensional, it's multi-flavor, it's multicolored, and that's the mega trends of where candy has gone. And Nerds is just the greatest manifestation of that, and that's what really has driven this. It's this rocket ship. And honestly, we were, 2020, 2021, I think the element of being launched in COVID where consumers are looking for something. Yeah. So they go to the store and they're intrigued. They know what Nerds are. And then let me try this. So that element of like us really hitting through earned media at that time, we didn't really advertise until this last Super Bowl.
Yeah, for sure.
And that element, that's been the biggest, the genesis of this, because honestly, we were catching up with capacity to build that. And then when we built our capacity, we're like, we really have this opportunity to kickstart how.
Yeah. So you mentioned it, but speaking of this Nerd Super Bowl spot last year, such a huge moment for the brand, as you mentioned. So, and you've teased a little bit about this, but when you and the team kind of crafted the brief for this, what were the key things that you wanted to communicate to the consumers?
Well, when you think about it at the time, our household penetration was under 20. And again, we were becoming the number one sugar confections brand, the largest sugar confections brand, having under a 20 household penetration. So the challenge was like, how do we really kickstart household penetration? There are very, very few ways to do that in this world now, because with the fragmentation of media, there are only a few opportunities, and the Super Bowl is one of them. I mean, that really is the world stage where people watch.
It's a breakthrough moment.
And it really is a breakthrough moment. So like we wanted to, launch our nerds, proposition on the world stage. And again, I'm not going to go through the details of the brief, but the elements of we wanted, there are distinctive assets that we wanted to drive because everybody knew, we were talking about it earlier, the Nerds characters themselves, they were established in 1983 with the Nerds brand.
And I love them.
And it was like, how do you really refresh those Nerds characters? How do you represent this new transformational product in Nerds gummy clusters in a way? And so we actually created like a gummy character, and then we had these nerds. So I'm going from the brief to like, how do you really demonstrate the power and emotion of this product and how it unleashes all your senses. So that's the elements of the brief itself, let's just say. And what was great that Digitas and the team and our PR partners in Golan, and like we had a great partnership to really bring that to life in terms of our paid, earned, and owned. But the Super Bowl spot itself is essentially a 30-second demonstration of the product and what it is. You have this gummy character that's dancing, and then all these nerds want to unite with it to unleash all the senses. And so that really was the Super Bowl spot of the last year, and it was a great success. And again, we took a very iconic movie scene, a very iconic song, and a famous song that people recognized, and those that don't recognize it, which it's interesting because many of younger generations had no idea what this movie scene was and no idea what this song was. But it was like, but that's really fun. And I thought that the surprise to me in that Super Bowl ad was the fact that it really resonated with different generations. There was this, if you know, you know. And then within the younger audience, it was like, this is really fun. And it really, really broke through with, those younger audiences as well. So that was great.
All right. Well, we know that was a campaign. That campaign was a huge hit. So rumor has it, doing it again. Another Super Bowl spot. For the nerds.
No, I think it is. We are doing it again. And I think that's again, I think the first one, this first Super Bowl was a success. And we were able to grow household penetration by 5 percentage points.
Which is great.
So now we're tracking around 25 as we come into this new year. But again, if you have a 25% household penetration, that means 75% of households have not tried it yet. And we are, like I said, almost over $800 million in retail dollars, and only 25% of consumers have tried us. So the opportunity is immense. So let's try it again. And so we are, the campaign is the same. We are unleashing the senses, and
well, Greg, I don't know if this is okay or not, but any chance we could get a sneak peek of this incredible spot that's coming out?
How much money do you have on you?
I only have my debit card.
So that's good. So no, I think I'd be like, honestly, we just finished the spot in the last week. It's been a long time coming, partnering with Digitas on this one, and it's been a great road. I could play the finished spot with you right now.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Shout out to Digitas Chicago team.
Okay, I'm
excited.
Can't
wait to see it. Just slide on over, Brad.
All right, so here we go.
The colors all around me, so pretty in the sky, are also on the face of people going by. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. When two great things combine, it's a wonderful world. Nerds Gummy Clusters. Unleash your senses.
Amazing. Well, as a person who loves all the colors all the time, what a beautiful commercial. Shaboozey.
I know, we love Shaboozey.
Oh, big deal. All right. So, that was incredible, Greg.
No, it's honestly pretty cool, because when you do a first Super Bowl ad and you do stuff that is iconic, like, how do you lap that?
Yeah.
And I honestly feel like our team has created an amazing communication that is really going to break through. And I think that all the parts of it, so you think that we're Nerds is about unleashing the senses. You see in that spot how all the senses are unleashed, and they are unleashed after the Shaboozey takes a bite of the Nerds Gummy cluster, and it's and it's within the context. So if the Super Bowl is in New Orleans, so you have a second line band that's really playing a song. You have the Gummy character that is leading the way as the trumpeter. I think that's a trumpet.
Yeah.
And as the trumpeter of that, and then you see all the nerds doing anything they can to get to join in that union with the Nerds Gummy character. And I think that all with the magic of Shaboozey singing "What a Wonderful World."
Yeah, I know. It's
just like, so there's just so much that has come together on that front. And he doesn't. I mean, again, I don't think we could have chosen a better artist, because he is, first of all, he was an incredible human being. He's phenomenally talented, and you just see recognition after recognition after recognition in this element of he really is a next level talent, and we're blessed to be able to partner with him on this spot.
Yeah.
So it really is an outstanding spot. And again, our success criteria is, like, we want to make sure we truly continue that household penetration momentum.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. Like, I love how you made the Gummy cluster character, give them more personality. You fall in love with it more. Yeah. The color explosion that's everywhere, and the song for hope, like, what a wonderful world. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, I think in these days we could all use more hope. And I think that's an important thing, because at its core, this element of what a wonderful world, and it's this of opportunity and what could be, and it's all manifested in that spot. And I think and I don't want to, again, take two steps back. We're a candy brand.
Yeah.
So it really is, like, we're providing that level of joy at that small level, and I think but it really does come across. And every time I look at that spot, I'm amazed by the different levels when you see the Nerds character jump on Shaboozey and his outfit
changes
as as the Nerds character looks up, and the colors just change everywhere, and it really just takes the world from where it is to this wonderful multisensorial experience.
Yeah, I love the evolution. I think last year explained the product.
Yeah.
Now it's really kind of showing how it should and could make you feel when you're consuming it and feeling it and touching it and smelling it. So really, really love what you all have done with the brand.
For sure.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, Greg, thank you again for being with us here. Such awesome conversation. One last question before we wrap up.
Yep.
So based on the success of Nerds Gummy Clusters, which we've talked about from a brand perspective, how do you keep fans coming back? And what's next for Ferrara? Like, what's next for your great portfolio of brands that you have?
I think, you'll see great things from many of our brands, because I think we've created a flywheel of how to operate across paid media, across earned, and even our own channels. And if I were just to take a moment and talk about Trolley, it's an incredible brand that has an incredible equity, that it has an irreverence. It's a brand that's there to really push the boundaries. And with a brand that dares you to eat me.
Yeah.
Honestly, that element is like, which for me and my generation, there's a little bit of like, that's a little.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that raciness, but it is that element of pushing the boundary on that front. But we're like, locked in with gaming and gamers, and like that's how we're driving loyalty with the consumer there because we know that gamers are constantly snacking and munching, and that trolley worm and that big bite of the trolley worm is that kind of manifestation of that pushing the boundary. And again, so like that Trolli is an example, and we have the Jelly Belly portfolio, and I mean, if you imagine, I could talk to you, 3 podcasts about Jelly Belly and how it is a curated gourmet product. There is no product within sugar confections that is made with that much love or complexity.
Wow.
And it has flavor and color on the inside. It has flavor and color on the outside. It's the only jelly bean that has that. So if you were to have a Jelly Belly watermelon jelly bean, it has a red inside and it has a speckled green outside. And it's flavored accordingly. So like that's the kind of like I'm talking to you on this smaller scale, but how do we have that come across, that complexity, that gourmet, that curation in terms of our communications? So like our plans are, like we talk about paid, we talk about earned, we talk about owned, we talk about connecting with culture. And the connection with culture is an area where I believe Ferrara punches above our weight. Like we find those opportunities where we are breaking through. This is a silly example, but we were talking about this last Halloween was, I really feel like, where nerds broke through in culture. And one illustrative example of that, there was a teacher, and they had a costume contest that, and she dressed up as a nerd, Gummy cluster, and we sent her a giant care package because that teacher was a teacher of a friend of mine that used to work. We used to work together at Crafton. He sent me the picture of that teacher, and we think about that, doing that small, because they will always break through, and you do it to do it. And I think that area of that, so we do that on a small scale, and we do that and we send it to great stars who love nerds
absolutely
as well. So I think that element of like that's how we stay relevant in this day and age.
100%.
Yep.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I think that's incredible. Brad and I are relationship marketers by trade, and that small thing for you to send them that, they're a customer for life, and they will always talk about your brand. So the importance of driving loyalty is incredible. Thank you so much for being here. I know you were so busy, and we all know the Super Bowl is coming up. Very exciting. But thank you so much for being here with us and talking about not only your career trajectory, but just about the growth of this incredible product that we can't wait to eat more
I know.
today.
I'm eyeing them right now.
And I appreciate it. It was a good time.
Yeah, and also thanks to our listeners for tuning in. And be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and visit Digitas.com for more info. And see you next time on Spilling Loyalty.